We may no longer see Donald Trump in front of cameras or feel the impact of his late-night tweets, but his infamous label fake news lives on as much as ever before.
This is a news media that will look you in the face and say that they are a news media. They're nothing of the sort any longer. They are unquestionably the megaphones for the far left in America today.
When Trump departed, he left a gift of inflated exposure and better ratings to a number of conservative media outlets, including Newsmax and One America News. Meanwhile, Fox News only got lumps of coal from the outgoing president.
Fox has become fake news, too. I don't know what happened.
While Fox remains the major conservative voice, things have changed since the events of January 6th, especially when it comes to staying away from so-called flamethrowers, like U.S. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
What's been your experience there? I look for you there. I don't see you there often, if at all. I don't know. I don't track it totally. But what's your experience there with Fox?
Well, if you notice, David, I'm one of the most conservative members of Congress, and I'm never invited to be on Fox News. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that Fox News changed drastically after the election. Republicans all over the country constantly talk about how Fox has changed, and they don't see it the same as they used to.
The Georgia Congresswoman seems to be part of a growing distrust of the media. Recent polls shows that of those who voted for President Trump, 92% of them see the media today as just a part of the Democratic Party. Another poll shows since January 6th, that feeling among Republicans has increased even more, up some 7%. Washington Post media reporter Paul Farhi says the Trump faithful have totally tuned out the mainstream media over issues such as coverage of election integrity issues during the 2020 election. And even his answer is somewhat telling.
In some ways, David, it's hard to argue with the faithful and the belief of the faithful. The facts don't seem to really matter, and the evidence doesn't seem to matter.
So where do Trump conservatives go? Some are looking to alternative outlets, which have refused to back away from charges about a rigged election. At first, social media served as a way to get around the mainstream influence, although with Twitter and Facebook leading the censorship charge, it's becoming trickier, and options to fully speak out have become limited.
One other thing that could change the conservative landscape, President Trump getting set to launch his own social media version. We don't know what it is, but it sure will shake up things. Gordon?
David, any time frame for this? It seems like the longer we go, the less likely it is he's going to launch. You got any inside information?
Well, I've talked to a couple of folks, Laura Trump, not just Laura Trump, but a couple of people inside Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago headquarters, if you will, and they are all saying that it's coming, and it's coming soon. Now, when I had those conversations, that was about a week or two ago, so whatever soon is in Donald Trump's orbit, but it's going to happen. I think it's just a question of not just when, but what shape that's going to look like.
All right, well, people have been leaving Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Is that having any effect on the social media outlets?
Well, you know, it's funny. If you look at some of the trending in social media, Twitter, Facebook, not so much Instagram, but Twitter and Facebook for sure, it's kind of been flat. But that's been for a while now, 2019, 2020, and now, of course, we're into 21. So it's been kind of a bit hard to gauge, other than the fact that just not only anecdotally, but clearly conservatives are looking for other outlets, and they're doing it in spades, Gordon. I mean, excuse me, part of the problem, and some of the conservatives I'm talking to are saying that it's our own fault, as in that's conservatives saying it's our own fault in the sense that big tech, they see them as liberal, then they try to engage on these platforms, and therefore it's kind of like, you know, why are we doing this to begin with exactly? As a matter of fact, one person, a conservative, told me it was like an abusive relationship. Why do we keep coming back for more punishment? And I think that is sort of the way conservatives are not only thinking about it, but they're also trying to figure out what do they do next? I mean, how do you get out of the relationship? And I think that's where we're at right now.
All right, well, some are staying with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Mm-hmm. What are they telling you about their strategies for fighting big tech censorship?
Well, look, they say, Gordon, like, why are we going to shrink away from the fight? In other words, get into the lion's den. Go ahead and you know, for example, Tomi Lahren, I can tell you this, you know, the Fox Nation host there, anyhow, she told me in a long conversation about that she's got, what, a few million followers on Twitter. Why would she give up that platform? No reason to do that, just to make a stand morally to say, I'm against you, Twitter, and go to other places. She can go to other places. Many conservatives are going to other places, but the big name conservatives are also staying on Twitter. And it's interesting, Gordon, what they're doing is, many of them, for example, Dinesh D'Souza, he's on Twitter, but instead of putting any fresh content on Twitter, he's putting his Rumble links, his links to Rumble, this new conservative, in essence, kind of a conservative YouTube site. He's putting those on Twitter, trying to direct traffic that way. So that's a bit of how the nuance in all of this.
All right, well, we've got a viewer question. This is Cheryl on Facebook. How can everyday people take a stand against fake news when our voices are also censored on social media platforms?
Well, it's a really great question. Look, and I think this is what everybody's trying to figure out. I guess the answer is you go and look for alternative outlets. And when I say alternative, let me be clear what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about conspiracy theory websites or anything like that. I'm talking about legitimate conservative social media sites that have started. For example, CloudHub is an example. You know, I know Parler is retooled a little bit, and there's others. But you have to be careful. I mean, you know, there's Gab, G-A-B. Gab is out there. So I think what people are doing is that they're trying to find these other sites because they want to speak out. They want to have freedom of speech, if you will. They don't feel like they're finding that on Twitter. I think the bigger problem here, Gordon, is once again, we have enough divisiveness in this country. We've seen it everywhere. And now we're seeing it on social media, where the conservatives are going into their echo chamber. The liberals have always had their echo chamber, but now it's on big tech, Twitter and Facebook. And even look at the vaccination situation. I mean, you have the VPs, the vaccinated people, and the UVPs, the unvaccinated people. I mean, it just seems like every facet of American life is being divided, and that includes social media.
Well, the philosopher in me is saying this is all part of a dialectic. And the historian is also saying this is nothing new. The Pulitzer Prize is named for a famous newspaper publisher who absolutely had agenda-driven news coverage. Is this really something new for American politics and American news, or is this just the same old, same old?
Well, it's a different form of the same old, same old. We've seen this in past, I don't want to say centuries, but in decades. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, Alan Dershowitz calls it a new form of McCarthyism. He says it's worse than McCarthyism as to what's happening regarding free speech in big tech today. That's what Alan Dershowitz, the famed Harvard lawyer, told me. So, you know, I think you're seeing it in all different shapes and sizes for sure. I will tell you that this kind of brings up the legislative aspect of all of this. We've heard about Section 230. I don't want to geek out and talk about all of the details of it, but basically, Section 230 is part of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. It was written before Google, before Facebook, before Twitter, and it gave these social media companies, in essence, that are around today, giving them liability protection. So the question then becomes for conservatives, if they get back in power in the midterms and possibly the presidency, what will they do about eliminating Section 230? They've talked about it for a long time. We'll see what happens.
Well, I don't think that elimination is really the key. The key is how do you extend free speech into private platforms, and is that even possible to have those kinds of constitutional protections? But Section 230 is just a damage claim. You can sue for damages. So all that does is shut it down. It doesn't really open it up. So the debate will continue. And David, thanks for the insight. Thanks for joining us. You can get the latest on Section 230 and all the dialectics and current news coverage by downloading the CBN News Channel app today. Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.